and welcome back. Thank you for sticking with me and coming back for another week. I am still trying to get the hang of the whole YouTube video thing, especially when it comes to intros and conclusions, so please bear with me. This week I have Naja Marie Ait's book, When Death Takes Something From You, Give It Back. Ait is a Danish author. She's done a lot of poetry and stuff. She seems to just have a very fruitful career. Now this book in particular, it is nonfiction, so I'm following through with my New Year's resolution. And it's complicated. So it's not your traditional prose, so don't think of this as a book simply about death and like getting through death in the kind of clinical sense. It's this woman's personal navigation through the grief after losing her son. And so because of that, it's a very heavy read. And if death is a sensitive topic for you, if it's triggering, you might want to avoid this book. However, even if it's not super triggering for you, it might be a really helpful book for you because it kind of makes you feel like you're not alone, especially if you have experienced a traumatic loss. I know for me, I have, and even though it occurred a while ago, this book, even years later, it was just very emotion evoking. It made me feel very empathetic for her, and it kind of even helped me process a little bit of my own loss. And so I think for that reason it has great potential to be very satisfying for you, even if you have experienced loss in your life. So as for the book itself, there are some kind of prose sections to it. Like right here opening up, it says your 12-year-old brother wrote, and it has a little passage of a note that the brother wrote the son Carl who had passed. But then there's also like little excerpts of Ait's own poetry that I kind of mentioned earlier. It's more focused on her son, but I think it's just really important to note that because it shows how diverse she is as a writer to include poetry into her nonfiction prose. Something I thought was incredibly moving, especially emotionally, was when she's reliving the night that she found out that her son passed. It gives a lot of context to the whole book itself, and I think what's really interesting and artfully done is that she doesn't give all that information to you right away. She gives it in little snippets, so the story builds. The story of what happened to her son builds as the story of her processing her grief goes on as well. So I think that's a really unique way of writing a book, especially when it comes to memoirs. I feel like a lot of times authors, when writing memoirs, try to go very linearly. They start at the beginning of their life and then go to the end, or they start at the beginning of a year or a period or whatever it is. But that's not how we think. We kind of think in flashes and whatnot, and we have these memories that come up, and I think the fact that this book is kind of set up as like current working through grief and then the memory of what happened with the grief is very human, and I really liked that. So I think it's definitely a super interesting book. I think it's incredibly well written, very moving. I felt very empathetic for Ait, both as a character in her own story and also for Ait as a person who wrote the story. And not only is she so relatable, both as a character and as a person, the way that she paints Carl and his life through memories of him while he was still alive, and then through the explanation of what happened on his final night, you really get a sense of who this Carl was and how much he meant to not only her, but the rest of their family and the other people in his life. So I think even though this book is about death, it's titled Death, I've talked a lot about dying when talking about this book, it really is about loving in life and appreciating what you have. And I know that that sounds super cliche, but I think it definitely kind of, because it is so emotional, it makes you take a second and think about what's important to you and think about the people in your life, how you're living it, how you're influencing others. So highly recommend this book. Like I said kind of in my last video, it is a short book, but because it is so emotionally intensive, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a quick and easy read, just because it takes you on that emotional journey of remembering Carl and then finding out what happened to him. So definitely recommend, try swinging by your library, and that's all I've got for this book. Thank you again for sticking with me through another video, and in the meantime, while you're waiting for my next post, my next video, just know that it's going to be on Marc Favreau's Spies. Spoiler alert, it is a teen book, but I didn't know it when I picked it up. So don't let that dissuade you, because it was super informative and it was kind of ironic just reading it at this time, considering all the political stuff going on. That's all I've got. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.